I'm Anita Norwich. I'm a professor emerita from the University of Michigan in the departments of English, Language and Literature, and in the program in Judaic Studies. I was an NEH fellow in 2018-19, but I had been using the center's resources for many years before, and hopefully when the pandemic is over, for many years after. I came to the center primarily to do research on Yiddish, which is my field of scholarship and expertise, and particularly to find materials by women in Yiddish. The myth had always been, and I didn't know that I could prove that it was a myth, but that's what I was hoping to do. The myth had always been that women wrote poetry or they wrote diaries or journals, and I was looking particularly for novels and also for other prose works, short stories mostly. What impressed me the most about the research that I did there was simply the volume of it. You know, more than one particular, I'll pick out a particular thing in a moment, but even more than the one particular thing, it was that there was more than I had expected. There was more that was earlier than I had expected. There was more that was better literature than I had been led to expect. It really changed my sense of the history of Yiddish literature, which obviously is no small thing. And it introduced me to a number of fascinating women writers who were ahead of their time, both in terms of politics and feminism and expressions of sexuality and desire and all the rest. If I had to pick out one, I have to say it was this really tiny little volume of a collection of 9 short stories by a woman I had never heard of, and I only know 2 other people who have heard of. A woman named Hannah Blankstein. And it wasn't the kind of thing I was looking for. It was a collection of 9 short stories, and I was looking primarily for novels. But I'd never heard of her, and there was this little volume, I mean, literally a little volume. And it was published, what drew me to it was that it was published in Vilna in July of 1939. That is really on the eve, practically, of the war, which of course started on September 1st. And I was intrigued by that. And then when I opened the book, it had a very short introduction to the volume by Max Weinreich, who is, you know, it would not be an exaggeration to say the most important linguist of the 20th century, the most important Yiddish linguist of the 20th century. And to have Max Weinreich writing an introduction to a volume that appeared in Vilna at that date seemed like something I couldn't pass up. What I found introduced me to a woman who was a leading political figure who, within Vilna, on the city government, who started organizations for vocational training and education for women, who got women off the streets, prostitutes off the streets, and gave them a trade instead, and who had this range of stories that were of different lengths and frankly of different quality, but had a distinctive voice that I thought should be out there. And I've since translated that volume. I still have to write an introduction to this little volume of Hannah Blankstein's materials. And I'm translating this rather lengthy novel by Celia Dropkin. That would be the answer to the question of what I'm working on right now.